Welcome to the Wealthy Life Podcast. I'm Sybil Verch, and today we're going to learn what you need to know about money to get promoted, which in turn can help you make even more money. I'm thrilled to welcome Saijal Patel, founder and CEO of Saij Elle, a financial education and wellness platform for women. She has more than 25 years in the finance industry as a financial investment professional, as a media personality, and an educator. She is a CFA charter holder, a former anchor on CNBC Asia and BNN Bloomberg, and is on a mission to help women develop financial fluency and confidence. Saijal, welcome.
Thanks for having me, Sybil. It's great to be here.
This is such a good topic. I like the correlation between money and career advancement, especially when it comes to women, because women have not always had it fair or equal when it comes to getting promoted. But what inspired you to start Saij Elle in the first place?
Wow. Well, it was a long time coming, Sybil, 20 years in the financial industry. And there's so many things that I was recognizing that didn't sit well with me. When I was an advisor, starting as an advisor's assistant, most of the time the women weren't coming to the meetings. They weren't joining their husband. I remember asking people like, why aren't they there? So that was sort of my first wake-up call that a lot of women were not getting engaged with their finances. And then working at CNBC and also BNN, I was talking about topics that I thought were very important. I remember covering the great financial crisis, and a lot of my friends loved the fact that I was on TV. They would say, I saw you on TV, but they didn't understand a word that I said. They had no idea. And, but then there was a moment where I was with a group of women, and they started asking me very timidly, well, how did the great financial crisis happen? Like, why are people losing their homes and their jobs? And I remember saying to them, well, do you want to know? And I spent a half an hour explaining exactly what happened. And everyone was fascinated. Everyone was. And after that, when we would get together, they would start asking me questions about investing and, things that were coming up. So it told me that women did care. They did care about money. Mm-hmm. And two, there was so much jargon. And with CNBC, it's a different type of audience, right? So we're using very complicated jargon. Mm-hmm. But that was a wake-up call for me that something needed to change, and that there was a hunger to be educated, but women didn't want to be intimidated.
Well, they don't teach it at school. I mean, where are you supposed to learn this? You don't learn it at school. Most people don't learn it within their families at home because each generation is in the same boat. They haven't learned it either. And I think a lot of men have the same questions, and they maybe are better at hiding it. I think women are generally better at asking the questions. So good for you
I agree.
For spending the time. So then you built this platform. I'm going to go back. What does living a wealthy life mean for you? Because I want to hear how that then ties in what it may mean for other women.
It's a great question. And, because of what I do, I think people tend to think that I only care about money, and that's, the most important thing. But I don't really believe in that. I think wealth and wealthy life is really about holistic wellness, and how all of it is integrated together. So, when I think about wellness, there are different aspects to it. There's a physical wellness. We want to be energetic and healthy so we can do the things that matter to us. There is the emotional wellness, so having peace of mind. There is social wellness, because I truly do believe that we are all meant to connect and not be isolated. There's lots of research that shows that longevity is tied to having people that we care about around us. There is intellectual wellness, being curious, again, because I believe that we are all meant to contribute to make this world a better place in our own way.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, there's the financial wellness, because most of the things that we do want to do requires money.
And it's true.
Required money. Yeah.
And when you look at all those different areas of wellness, I think every human being would benefit from spending some time in each of those areas, learning everything they need to know to live their optimal life. So let's bring it back then to the financial component, because that's what people want to hear today, is what do they need to know about money? And I want to talk about it in the context of getting promoted. So looking at how do we advance women to senior leadership roles, and what role does money and financial knowledge play in that?
Yeah, so let me step back, because I thought this was a gap that I was seeing just even a few years ago that we weren't figuring out. When I started my personal finance platform for women, so, teaching them how to invest and plan and make sure they're secure in retirement, I would engage with a lot of women leadership organizations. And I would ask them, where's the financial piece? Every single one of them, we're not engaged in it. And they would be, yeah, it's important, but not really,
But money makes the world go around. Like all the corporations, it's bottom line driven. And you're right. I've been to some of those groups.
That's missing.
Yeah. So they're spending time talking about, confidence building, imposter syndrome, leaning in, putting your hand up.
Yeah.
But they're not talking about the financial competency piece.
Yes. And that was the part that was missing. And I'll tell you, Sybil, I would go to these events and I would ask women, how are you finding them? And they're like, we're tired of it. Like, we're hearing the same thing. Be authentic. It's not working. And when I would mention what I was doing, their eyes would light up and be like, you know what? I never made that connection. And my message is, I'm not saying soft skills aren't important. Whether, I don't know if they're really soft skills. I do think be authentic and empathetic is important. But, women kind of are. They're already empathetic. It's the hard skills. It's at the end of the day, when you're working for a company, you have to be able to demonstrate whether you're going to make the money or save the money. And it's the financial fluency. That's the piece that has always been missing. And I see it because I'm asked to run corporate workshops all the time. I'm brought into corporations to run these financial literacy or wellness workshops for women. And I can tell you 9 times out of 10, they'll say, yeah, I kind of know how to invest, but not really. And I'm not really interested in it. Or I know I should be doing something. That tells me if they don't know what goes into evaluating a stock, they're not prepared to make a case or a business case in the corporate environment.
Right. For a project, a new initiative that they're working on.
Absolutely.
May cost money. So what's going to be the return on that investment? And
Absolutely.
How do they articulate that?
Yeah. And the other thing is, and I'm sure you've seen this, look, we've worked in the financial industry. It's been traditionally male dominated, right? When I was at CNBC, I was interviewing thousands of CEOs. I felt very comfortable being the only woman in a room with 50 men. It didn't intimidate me because I could have conversations that were happening in their room. And what was happening? They were talking about money. They were talking about deals. They were talking about the economy, politics, sure, sports, which I can sort of contribute to, but not a lot. But that's the conversation that they were having. And I know that a lot of women would be very uncomfortable being in that room. So that's a huge mission of mine, is to teach them the business fluency as well as the personal fluency. Because I'll tell you that once you learn your personal finances, about 70% of what you learn is actually transferable into the business environment. It might have a different language, but you're still learning about diversification principles. You're learning about risk management. You're learning about return on investment. You're evaluating stocks, right? It's a lot of the same principles. So much of that carries into the business environment. And like you said, that's what helps them get promoted. And even if they did have challenges, they now have options to walk away if they really wanted to walk away.
Yeah, I even think about the example of a budget. And most managers and senior leaders, once a year, you got to set your budgets for your department and your divisions for the year ahead. And that's very similar to even doing a budget at home. You have to look at what are the revenues coming in, what are the expenses going out, what do we need to do to shuffle things around to make the numbers look better?
Yeah.
Where can we get some growth? So I think a good message here is it's not overly complicated. Would you agree? I think a lot of people have this perception that learning about finances and how to read financial statements and do budgets and profit and loss statements are intimidating, overwhelming, and complicated. What would you say to that?
It is, if you're trying to maybe figure out on your own, right? This is why you learn this stuff and why we create, you have it, I have it, where it's a community and a platform where we can guide you. I always say all of this is figure outable.
Yeah.
And when women tell me, oh, it's intimidating, and I said, but it's because you haven't been exposed to it. It's kind of like riding a bike. It's like, well, you didn't know how to ride a bike. You learned. You didn't know how to be a mother, but it didn't stop you from being a mother. You figured it out. It's the same thing with this.
So what's getting in their way, do you think? Like, why aren't more people proactive in learning about finances?
Well, I have an interesting theory about that. I know people say, oh, I don't have time. I don't think that's it. Women are great at managing time. And we all make time for things that are important to us. We always do.
Yes.
So I don't think it's that. I do believe that this is years and years of programming, subconscious and conscious, that women should not aspire to have money or should just have enough. They're just traditionally have not been in the rooms where this is discussed. And it goes back to, maybe ancient times. Men were the breadwinners. They have been judged to be the person who takes care of the household. And women have been sort of in this other corner of being the nurturing person. And for some reason, it seems to conflict with them. That if I'm a nurturing person or I'm a good person, I should not aspire to have money.
Yeah, and what's interesting about that is if you look at portfolio performance, there's a lot of studies that show that female portfolio managers actually outperform their male counterparts.
Yeah,
so
I talk about that.
They're good at it. And even go back to households, even in more traditional roles. I think about even in my grandparents' household, my grandpa was a farmer and my Nana, really took care. She prepared the meals and ran the household. But she ran a lot of the finances in the household. The woman typically does all the bill payments and all of that on a daily basis anyways. So it's just taking it to that next level.
To the next level. Yeah. And that's what I tell them. I go, you already have strengths because you know how to do this. But my message to them, and this happens a lot when, women say, yeah, but I'm really great at money because I manage the household budget, which is wonderful. It's just that it's not enough.
It's not. What else do they need to know? I mean, I know there's lots out there, but you are absolutely right. Running the household budget is step one, but it is not enough. So what are some of the things they need to learn?
Yeah, not in today's world. You have to learn to invest. There's things that I realized going back a couple of years that really made this mission a lot more powerful and urgent to me. And that is, when I was Sybil at CNBC, I could already see the wealth gap happening because our society tends to reward asset ownership over contribution. And not that contribution and working hard isn't important, of course it is, but that's not where the focus has gone. And you just have to look at our tax system to understand, tax favors property and stock ownership. And yet, if you're an employee, you're getting taxed at the full progressive rate, right? So as you accumulate those assets, it's like a snowball effect. So women have to be engaged in that and making sure that it's not just about earning money. Every message out there that I can see is all about making money. It prepares us to get a job, right? You go to school, you get a job, you do interviews. Nobody ever teaches us how to manage it.
Yeah. It's what you do with what you have. And we've both seen cases where people are chasing the higher salaries, the higher compensation type positions. But if they're spending more than they're earning, they're still not getting ahead. And then there's the old millionaire next door theory or idea where it's you can have blue collar workers, average income earners, but they're smarter with their money. They invest their money wisely. They spend less than they earn, and they've got millions. They're not driving the flashy car that costs $150,000. They're driving, maybe a 15-year-old vehicle that they'll get another 5 or 10 years out of.
Mm-hmm.
And they're just
social media has changed all of that, hasn't it? So
it has.
It's like this aspirational lifestyle. I'll tell you, I bought my car. I had to get a new car in December, and I was I paid cash.
Yeah.
It was an SUV. Yeah, $55,000. I'm just like, oh my God, killed me to work that money out. And then I was looking at all these nice cars that were $75,000, and I'm like, how does anybody afford that?
Yeah.
Oh, they lease it.
Right.
Or they do monthly payments. Now, I'm not saying some people just have to, and you need a car, but do you have to get the luxurious car if you're financing it?
Yeah.
It made me think that this has become our society, is that somehow having these things are going to make us happier, but that happiness doesn't stay, right?
It's fleeting. It absolutely is fleeting. And you ask most people on their deathbed what they would do differently. That now you're starting to get to the important stuff, which is, your health, family, your relationships.
Yeah.
So walk us through what you teach people. So you do these workshops and for women who are looking to get more opportunities in their careers, maybe get promoted into leadership positions. What are kind of the key components of the course you teach?
Yeah. Well, when they do come into our community and the membership, we start with the personal finance. The logic around that is we all care about our money more than someone else's money.
Yes.
That's
true.
Yeah. Right.
You got to master that first. You got to lead by example.
You do. You do. And that's the most important part, because that also sets women up for optionality, right? They know, okay, I'm dealing with this. Now I know what kind of wiggle room I have. Should I be going for the promotion? Do I need to go for the promotion? Can I afford to take a career break? Can I start my own business and quit, right? So you have to start there. And then once you kind of build that confidence, and we walk them through, there's a community where they can ask questions, women come together, we have these discussions, I bring in guest experts. Then it's about moving into the business fluency. Because once you have that, the business fluency part is not as difficult, because they're like, oh yeah, I learned that principle. Now this is just the other side of the coin. It just has a different language around it.
Right.
So we try to like, the idea is not to make them an accountant because, I
Yeah.
think most people would find that boring. It's just to be able to translate some of that knowledge to say, okay, if I'm in a boardroom or if I'm presenting to an executive, can I hold my own? Can I give them the logic of here's why we should be doing this? Here's the risk on it. Here's the kind of return that we can expect. That sort of conversation that I can tell you a lot of people are intimidated by. So that's really the idea. That's not to say that we don't talk a little bit about the soft skills, like negotiation skills are important. But how do you negotiate if you don't have the numbers and the data
Yeah.
and to be able to use that? Right.
Yeah.
That's
And getting really
important.
comfortable around that. So
Yeah.
I'm sure over the 25 plus years you've been at this, you've seen some interesting cases and some frustrating situations. What are your pet peeves today when it comes to financial knowledge or behaviors that you've seen? And I know you did a post recently about one where it was related to I think, I don't deal with any of the finances. My partner does that.
Yeah. It is frustrating, although it's also understandable. What I've learned, Sybil, as much as I get frustrated because you just want to say, but why don't you get this? It's
Yes.
so important to you. It's kind of like it's to me, it's like watching someone who is a diabetic eat cake every single day, like
Yeah.
gorge on it. That's how
Yeah.
it is to me. Why are you doing it?
Yes, you're hurting yourself.
You're hurting yourself, and they don't know it. They
Right.
don't know it. It's only that you and I know this. And so many people in the industry know it because we've had the benefit of the knowledge
Yeah.
and the experience, but they don't. And so I have learned that as much as it feels irrational to us, it's rational to them. They're human beings make decisions on pain versus pleasure. And it feels too painful to them. It feels too big or overwhelming, or they have to face the fact that they're not where they want to be. So we have to kind of flip that and saying, but the thing is, the learning it is going to be a lot easier and the pleasure is going to come. So it's really trying to turn that around. So yeah, it is a pet peeve because I can see very clearly what the risks are. And, I had someone post as well and saying, yeah, we have to respect their wishes and we'll pick up the pieces when it falls. And I understand that. It's not the way I operate. I don't want to come in as the hero when they're in pain and they've lost money. Just as anyone who's gone through a divorce or is widowed and is overwhelmed, if I can help them prevent that pain, I'd rather be proactive and get them to be proactive than having to pick up the pieces.
Yeah. Fair.
Yeah.
It's a nice way to look at it and just try and meet people where they're at. But obviously the people who join the community and are reaching out and maybe listening to this, they want to learn. They're recognizing that, okay, I need to take control. I need to do something. Is there some easy basic steps that you can suggest in terms of where they start and what are the specific things that they should know that are easy to learn right out of the gate?
Yeah, it's it's so easy for me to say, oh, the first step is pick up a book, read a personal finance column. The challenge with that is that there is tons of information out there. They're not doing it. Right. So we almost have to step back. And I'll tell you, if I could wave a magic wand, it would be you, me, everyone. It doesn't even have to be female, but all of us kind of come together and say, and talk about this. Because then they would see, you know what, it's not just Saijal, it's not just Sybil. It's not these just one-off situations. It's almost like you have to flood them with it's in their face constantly.
Yes.
It is, because then it starts becoming part of their psyche. They're thinking about it. When it's sort of this one-off, they're not really thinking about it.
We don't talk about it as much as we should.
We don't, but there's no platform where we talk about it.
Yeah.
We're all individuals that, you do it, I do it. There's tons of personal finance experts out there. And I'll tell you, Sybil, when I started this, I thought, God, there's so much content. There's so many people like us, and yet we're not moving the needle.
No.
It's very slow. And yet the wealth gap is getting bigger. People are getting frustrated. Something is wrong.
Yep. Well, I think there's too much information.
Yeah.
So we don't need to create any more content. Everything that you want to know is already out there in lots of different forms. Just throw it into the computer, throw it into AI, you'll get all kinds of information back. But it's too much coming back. It's overwhelming. There's a lot of misinformation out there. People don't know who to trust, where to turn to. And even if they do figure all that out, then where's the motivation to take action? What are the practical steps? And so I really like the idea of courses. That's why we did the FinFit 90, I call it. It's how to get financially fit in 90 days. It's a boot camp.
Which is terrific.
And it's, there's 12 modules once a week for 12 weeks, and you learn all the basics, everything you need to know, and it's credible, and there's homework assignments each week, so you actually get to put it into action to learn. But I think what I'd love to see out there is making it normal and comfortable and fun to talk about money.
Yes.
People, it's very personal. And if there's a way to have conversations without sharing too much and without being judgy, because this is another thing, is people judge. They either are fighting to keep up with the Joneses and spending more than they have, just for appearance-wise, which is financial suicide, and destroys them, or they're embarrassed about what shape they're in today financially, and so not wanting to share. But that doesn't mean they can't talk about it. And I think the more people do talk about it, the more they realize the impact it can have in their lives. It can really reduce stress and create this sense of freedom and excitement to do all the things that they want to do.
Yeah.
But where do they get started?
Yeah, I'll tell you, like your course, I have something very similar, right? When I built, I called it the Strictly Money Personal Finance Program. We had 1,200 women go through it. Normally would take them about 3 months to do.
Yeah.
It would take about 6 months, and they had the worksheets. Because like you, I was thinking about, how do I get them to act though?
Yes.
And support them in the most flexible way possible. So you come together with these Ask Me Anything sessions, once a month, and it would be a group of women coming together of all walks of life. And I shared this with an executive that I was talking to a couple of weeks ago. I said, the power was not me, but I might be the subject matter expert. The power happened when you had the women come together, because all of a sudden they were like, wow, you know what? Yeah, I have strengths, but there's this thing, I have this little broken relationship with this aspect of money. Everyone did.
Yeah.
And that was the point I made. All of us have some aspect of money that is a little bit dysfunctional.
And then they're not alone. They don't feel alone. And I think that's kudos to you for doing that, because I think when people talk to one another and realize nobody's perfect and everybody's just trying to do the best that they can with what they have, and they don't always know the better way to do things, they're not alone, and it's a safe space to share that. It's great. And what role would you say financial advisors play, and how can they help individuals move the needle on their knowledge?
It's tough for them. Like I really feel for financial advisors, because you got a lot on your plate. yes, you can educate, but the level of education that you may need to, the time you need to spend, most advisors don't have it. Let's really be realistic. And so, Sybil, when I was building this, I saw myself, and I still see myself as the bridge to the financial industry. I was once I was a financial advisor. I did high net worth planning. I know what it takes, and it's a lot of work. Um, but what I found is that there's so many people who are intimidated by the financial industry, or you get a rotten apple, one person who just it makes the news, and all of a sudden everyone's painted with a bad brush. That I set out to empower, in my case, women. So when they do engage with the financial industry, they're better partners to them. That's the whole goal, because I believe in a financial plan. Do all the women in my network have an advisor? No, I would say maybe 30-40% of the women did. But a lot of them would tell me, I don't know what they do. I don't know what the advisor does.
Right.
Or they would literally say, I have no idea what I'm invested in. He never told me. And I was like, no, he's told you.
Yeah. And on that,
I'll call you out on that.
Yeah.
They have told you, you just may not have understood, or you felt intimidated, right? So my whole goal is you need a financial plan. It's very important, especially when you're getting to your 40s, because you got a small time frame to course correct if you need to course correct, right? You can't do it once you're 70 and you retire and you're like, oh, well, I'm going to run out of money.
Yeah. Too late.
And it's very difficult to think about how you're going to make sure your money lasts when you have no idea what the economy is like. You don't know how long you're going to live. You have no idea what your health's going to be like. There's so many factors. The women in my program get it. They get it, and they start valuing the advice. So, I always just tell advisors, just make sure you're asking the right questions. Make sure both partners are coming to the meeting. And also recognize that as much as they're a partner and they have a partnership, they each have their own values and ideas around money. And your goal is to figure out how you're sending them in the right direction, even though they each have their own personality and strengths and weaknesses, right? It's kind of like being a coach of, a team. Not everyone is the same, but you got to figure out how you're going to win with the different personalities. And my job is just to get them to spend time educating them so they feel comfortable when they're engaging with the industry. And they start asking good questions, because I think that's really important to hold.
It is. And you mentioned earlier when we were talking about what it means to live a wealthy life, and you mentioned curiosity and always learning. And I think that serves people well, is to ask the questions and get the information you need. It's kind of fun. How would you respond to a woman who says, I have no interest in learning about investing?
Yeah. You have to spend time with them to understand that they don't know what the consequences of that is. So somewhere they're thinking, I don't really need to know, right? Because there won't be consequences to that.
Right.
They really don't. It's like they don't know what they don't know.
Right.
Once I explain to them, here are the challenges you're facing. And also, investing is much easier than going to work every day, 40, 50 hours. It actually is, right? Once you kind of set it up, you leave it.
Yeah. And you don't have to do it by yourself. You can get professional help.
Yeah.
But it's just about learning the basics and knowing what questions to ask and who to trust.
Yeah. And then they realize, oh, well, I guess it's not as hard. But look, I'm having this conversation all the time. On Sundays I run stairs at a local place, and I ran into someone who goes to my gym, and we were talking about money, and he said, I thought I knew a lot. And then he and I got into a conversation, and he said, I realized that in his case, the advisor hadn't been doing the work that he should have been doing, and was they were spending a lot of money on things that they probably shouldn't. And I had just guided him, and I said, you should ask him these questions, and they're on track now. But he did say, he goes, my wife has no interest, and I realize how important it is, but I can't convince her. Like, what do you do?
Yeah. Yeah.
It is tough. So as much as I support women on this, I do hear a lot from men who are genuinely concerned about their wives, because they're like, there's a good chance I'm going to go before her.
Yep.
And I want her to be okay. I need her to come to the table and be at least a little bit engaged, so she sort of has some idea what's going on. I can't convince them.
Well, maybe the conversation needs to be a little different. And, one style doesn't suit everybody. Yeah. What I mean by that is if these women are thinking they're going to go in and meet with an advisor, and the advisor is going to talk all about the standard deviation, the alpha and the beta, the correlation of the stock and their portfolio, and they're not interested in that, they're missing it. Whereas if you're talking about, look, this is what we need to do to build a portfolio that's going to generate these types of returns to achieve these goals that you have set out. And, just speak in a more interesting language and easy to understand. Like, we don't need to make it any more complicated. The industry is complicated enough. I think what we need to do is make it more relatable and fun.
Yeah. And look, we all think about ourselves, right? Like, what's in it for me? And this is how I teach this in my program. Like, what is it you want to achieve? What is it that you want over the next 10 years, 5 years, 10 years, 15 years? All money is, and all financial planning is a strategy to maximize your money. That's it.
Great. And money, everything needs money. And if you've got, good financial health, you'll have less stress. So I think what I'm taking away from this today is the foundational principle is get a handle on your personal finance first. And it's not as difficult as it seems. And we talked about my program and your program, and there's other programs out there. I mean, even just once a week for 3 months can get you in a really good position. Over the big scheme of things, that's not that hard. So great, you get your personal finances done first. Then you migrate into, if you're looking to advance your career, you want to get promoted, you want a seat at the senior table, C-suite. You do need to know and speak the financial language. You need to understand the economy. You need to understand the rate of return on different projects or initiatives that you want to be behind. You have to understand how the math works. But guess what? You don't have to know it already. You can learn it. You can learn it. So where would people go to get more information about your course?
Yeah, so they can visit my website. It's saijelle.com. So SAIJELLE, which is a play on my name and wise women, for those who may not have figured that out. I really had to think about the branding on this one. So they can come to the website. The way we're starting it too, like, if you are not ready to jump into the personal program, the personal finance program, and the personal and business leadership program, start with the circle. Like, we're just building a community where we start talking about money and, understanding the implications of it on our life. It's a simple way just to get your feet wet and just get comfortable, because I understand that a lot of people aren't comfortable. They haven't been exposed to that. So that's a great way to start and get your feet wet.
Well, Saijal, thank you so much for being with us today. Keep up the great work you're doing. It's making a huge difference in people's lives. And I'm going to go check out that program myself. And I would encourage employers to check it out as well, because when they're promoting people, they want to make sure the people that they're promoting know their numbers.
I agree. Thanks so much for having me on and for a great discussion, Sybil.
And thank you to our audience. We really appreciate your likes, your shares, your follows. Tell all your friends. And what would you like us to cover next? Let us know at thewealthylife.com. As always, please seek independent professional advice before taking action. We are here to provide information to help you learn and ask the right questions to make smart decisions so you can live the wealthy life.